All right, folks, we're on the lunch break now. So essentially how we spent the rest of the morning is the government trying to argue through technicalities that the court doesn't have jurisdiction. The court has no business ruling on matters like this, and tried to cite other cases where the Prime Minister has withdrawn from the Kyoto Accord, Prime Minister has withdrawn from the treaty, or Prime Minister has declared war, and has said that none of those are grounds for the actual, as they call it, interference by the court to actually make a ruling there. So it is interesting because then they started to talk about the UK case, and I had remarked in one of my tweets that government has to be careful when talking about this case, because in some ways, the more you talk about the differences of a scenario, a lot of times you can actually reveal the similarities, and they started to do that inadvertently, and saying, oh, well, it's a completely different case because, Parliament had to actually come back and they had to rule on Brexit, whereas the same argument can be made that Parliament has to come back and they have to rule on this $1.3 billion that Trudeau has talked about when it comes to the commitment on the border to avoid the tariffs and all of this stuff. So it's going to be interesting to see how the government continues to do that, because they started to do okay, I think, when they were making these arguments about these technicalities, but they started to kind of dig a hole for themselves when they were trying to talk about the UK case, and ended up revealing that there's a lot of similarities between that scenario and what we have here. So, after lunch, I have to do a quick interview, so I won't be back in court immediately when it returns at 1:30, but hopefully around 2:15. So we'll see you then.